Heart at the Hazbin Hotel, Chapter 8. Now, I know cliffhangers suck, so I'm gonna do Chapter 8, and we're gonna keep on chugging through. So, now that the secret's out, how will everyone react? I also want to give a warning for this chapter. There is a mention of some slight gore, so that's just a little bit of a warning before we start. Chapter 8. True Nightmares. Heart's point of view. I stood up from the shower and quickly turned the water off. "Alastor?" I called out. "It's me, my dear. I'm sorry I barged into your room, but I had no answer from you. I was worried about you," Alastor told me. I heard concern in his voice. I smiled. "It's okay, Al. Thank you." I reached out and grabbed my towel. I wrapped it around myself. "Sorry I didn't answer you. I must have been lost in my thoughts." I stepped out of the shower. I noticed that Alastor was talking behind the bathroom door. I guess I didn't close it all the way. "It's all right, my dear. I would have come up earlier, but I figured you wanted to be alone for a moment," Alastor told me. "Yes, I appreciate that." I looked down at my arm. It's not bleeding, but I needed to take care of the wound. "Al, you think you can help me with this wound on my arm?" I looked down at myself. "I have my towel wrapped around me, but I can put on clothes if that will make you more comfortable." Alastor took a pause. He was probably taking a minute to think about that. "The towel will be fine," he finally answered. He opened the door and came into the bathroom. He looked at me and gently grabbed my arm. "Well, at least you don't need stitches." He reached into a small cupboard and pulled out the first aid kit. Alastor cleaned my wound, put some ointment on it, and then wrapped it up. He leaned down and gave my fresh bandage a kiss. "All better," he said as he stood back up straight. "Do any of your other scratches hurt at all? Do they need tending too?" I shook my head. "No, all the rest of me is fine." Alastor looked down at me and traced his finger under my bruised cheek. I took his hand into mine. "I'll be okay, my buck." "Wouldn't be the first time me and my sister fought," I said. "So that was your sister?" Alastor made sure. "Oh, yeah. There was no question about it. She can be a little wild," I explained. I walked past Alastor and into my room. "You don't say," Alastor said from the doorway. I looked back at him. "Al, do you mind if I get dressed? I just want to put something comfy on for the rest of the day," I asked him. "Of course. Let me give you your privacy. I'll stay in here." Alastor closed the bathroom door so I can get dressed. I found some loose-fitted sleeping pants and a tank top and slipped them on. "It's okay to come out now," I told Alastor. The door opened and he walked in. I could see something was on his mind. "Is there something troubling you?" I asked him. Alastor took a pause and just looked at me. "Why did you stop me?" he finally asked. I sighed. I figured he'd ask that. Because even though Lizzie hurt me, she's still my sister. I love her even though she is a brat. I want to look out for her. I don't want her to get hurt. I didn't want you hurting her. I didn't agree with what she does, but I can't control her. All I can make sure of is that she is somewhere safe to be. Alastor seemed to be okay with that answer. "I understand she's her sister, but I think the next time she hurts you, I'm making it my business." I bit my lip. "If you do, just promise me one thing." I walked up closer to him. "Don't hurt her too bad. If anything, just toss her across the street or something. I don't want to see her hurt," I told him. "I promise," he said, and then leaned down to plant a kiss on my forehead. There was a knock on my door. I went away from Alastor to answer it. On the other side was Charlie. "Oh, Heart, I'm glad to see you're okay. How is your arm?" Charlie asked with relief. I lifted my now wrapped arm. "It's okay. I had Alastor help me." Charlie nodded. "Oh, that's good to hear. Why don't you take the rest of the day off, okay? And rest." "If you're sure that's what you want me to do," I asked to make sure. "Yes, I'm sure from all this today put a strain on you. Take it easy and relax and heal the wound of yours," Charlie told me. I smiled. "Thank you." Charlie gave me a smile back and looked back to Alastor. "Al, you still want to cook dinner tonight? I'm not going to make you if you don't want to today." Alastor walked up and stood behind me. I'll do it. Don't want to mess up routine. I'll be okay to cook tonight. Unless everyone else says otherwise, he answered her. I'll make sure everyone wants to eat first beforehand. I'll let you know. Alastor bowed his head as a thanks. See you two later. Charlie waved goodbye and headed down the hallway. I closed the door and turned to Alastor. You know, if you're not really in the mood to cook, you don't have to. Charlie wasn't forcing you, I told him as I walked to my bed. I know, but I still want to, Alastor answered. I know something I can make tonight to have you feel better, Alastor said as he walked up to me. I smiled. He still wanted to take care of me. Can I still come down and watch? I asked him. If that is what you wish, Alastor made sure. Absolutely, I answered. Alastor went and put a hand on my head. Why don't you lay down and rest for a little bit, okay? I felt my body was heavy. Besides it aching, it's a lot of energy for me to transform into my feral form anyway. That's probably a good idea, I said as I got further into the bed and got comfy. Alastor grabbed the blanket at the end of the bed and brought it to cover me up. He made sure I was all comfy in bed. Do you want me to wake you later when I go down to make dinner? Alastor asked. If I'm still asleep by then, yes, I answered. Al, can you stay with me? Alastor reached down and held my hand. I wish I could, dear, but I have stuff I need to do. It's important that I run some errands today. I was a little saddened he couldn't stay with me, but I understand that he could be busy most days. I nodded my head. Okay, but you'll be right back, right? Alastor leaned down to look at me. I'll be back. He leaned down and placed a small kiss on my lips. I love you, he said once he pulled away. I almost wanted to melt into the blankets. I love you too. Alastor let go of my hand and walked to the door. Please lock the door when you leave, I told him as he got to the door. Want me to put a spell on it so no one bothers you? He asked me. No, it'll be okay, I told him. He nodded and made sure the door was locked before he closed it behind him. I sighed in relief. It was nice that Alastor did come and check up on me. I was getting lost. He was just amazing. I didn't deserve him. Is it weird to call a demon a secret angel? Probably, especially the radio demon. An angel? I'd get beat up or just have some crazy looks. My eyes started to get heavy. Soon, I was asleep. I opened my eyes and I was in my room. I was expecting to see my room being a little brighter from the city outside, but it was pitch black. I was confused. I sat up in bed and looked at the clock next to it. It was 11:25 at night. Now I was more confused. One being, I couldn't have slept that long. Second was because Alastor was supposed to wake me up for dinner. I swung my legs out from the bed and grabbed a robe that was sitting on on the chest at the foot of the bed. It was a good thing I could see in the dark well. Why didn't Al wake me up? He promised, I said, a little angered. I looked out the window. The lights of the city weren't there. Instead, I saw a swamp. A swamp? I started to go to the door, but I stopped at my vanity and looked at myself in the mirror. I was human again. My wings, horns, and ears were gone. My tail was gone as well as I looked behind me. What's going on here? I asked aloud. I had to go check on everyone, so I went to my hotel room door and unlocked it. I opened the door and expected to see the hall of the hotel, but instead I saw what looked like a study. I heard music right off the bat. It came from an old record player that sat on the far side of the room. There was a fireplace that was lit. It was the only light in the room. A couch was set up in front, and a chair was in a corner, but the corner was dark, so I couldn't see it well. There was a window by the chair as well. There were bookshelves along the walls. A gun sat on a holder above the fireplace. Around the room hung stuffed head trophies. All of them were the same animal. Deers. All bucks, to be more accurate. I heard rain as it started to fall. Where the hell was I? Definitely not at the hotel. Had someone kidnapped me? This didn't feel right. I heard a shuffle from the corner where the chair sat. Ah, I see you're awake, dear, I heard a voice say. I didn't recognize it, but at the same time it sounded awfully familiar. I looked in the corner and saw a shadow stand up from the chair. He slowly walked into the light of the fire. I made him out better. It was a man. That I could tell. He was tall and slim, with short brown hair. He wore a white long-sleeved shirt that was rolled up past his elbows. He wore a tan vest and a red bow tie. Slim wire glasses sat on his face. "Sorry if I gave you a fright." I didn't move or say a word. I was confused on who this man was. I didn't trust him. "I didn't expect you to awaken just yet, so I apologize for not looking at my best." He apologized with a small bow. Where am I?" I asked. "That's none of your concern right now," he said as he went to a small table and looked like it had alcohol on it. It looked to be whiskey. He filled a glass halfway. "Can I offer you a glass?" the stranger asked me. I shook my head. Didn't want to do that. He could spike it. He gave a shrug and then just shot it down in one swig. He placed the glass back down. "Where's Charlie?" I demanded. The man looked at me funny and gave a chuckle. "My dear, I unfortunately have no idea who that is. You are here alone." He started walking up to me slowly. I tried to back away, but soon my back hit a wall. The way the man's face looked in the light of the fire, it looked like he was crazy. His eyes almost seemed to glow as his glasses sat far down his nose and the shadows danced across his face. I was afraid. My back against the wall. I couldn't do anything, as I was frozen. I didn't even react as he jumped at me. He grabbed me by the arms and took a cloth that was in his back pocket and tied it around my mouth. He took me by the wrists and threw me to the floor. He got on top of me and took my hands around my back, and then I felt him tie me up. He tied my feet together as well. I was now crying, all in fear. If I wasn't in the hotel, Alastor couldn't help me. I was trapped at this man's mercy. I couldn't see him since I was on my stomach, but I heard him walk around the room. I heard a sound, but I couldn't explain what it sounded like. It sounded like a clinking noise. I heard him walk back. He grabbed me and flipped me over. I then saw that he came back with a big knife in his hand. I tried to back up from him, but he stepped on my leg hard, making me stop in pain as it shot up my side. "Where are you going, my dear? I thought we were going to have some fun," he laughed. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the room. The man's shadow cast on the wall beside him. I almost went into shock. The shape his shadow took, it looked like Alastor. Alastor? But why? Was this him? There was no way it could have been. The man jumped on top of me with his legs on both sides of me. He held the knife to my throat. My tears fell. He leaned close to my face. "You're lovely here on the floor, but I think your blood on the floor will look better," the man said as he smiled big, rubbing one of his fingers down my cheeks. I panicked. He was going to kill me. He took the knife and slid it down my face. I screamed, but was muffled by the cloth in my mouth. He laughed, then took the knife to his lips and licked the blood off of it. He was psycho. I had nowhere to go. No one to help me. I was trapped. He took the knife again and cut down my arm and then the other. He was toying with me. He was doing this to entertain himself. I saw it in his eyes. Every time he laughed, he wanted to watch me struggle. He enjoyed this. Perhaps too much. I heard the rain outside still. Lightning would crack now and then. The man continued to cut me in places on my body. But after a while of screaming and struggling, I decided to just give up and stop trying. He was covered in my blood. On his sleeves, pants, hands, even on his face. The man seemed to be a little upset about me not struggling anymore. "Ah, you gave up. Good." I heard him stand up and walk away a moment. I couldn't see where he went. I had my eyes closed from the blood on my face. I just laid there, waiting for what he had next for me. The rain was loud on the roof, and I tried to have that calm me, but that didn't work. Was this even real? I was scared. What if my hell life was just a dream, and this was me dying in the hands of this maniac killer? I heard him walk back, and I heard a click sound. "You are no longer needed. I don't like prey that doesn't give me a good entertainment after a while," I heard him say. He reached down and took the cloth out of my mouth. He took it and wiped away the blood from my eyes. I managed to finally open them, and I saw him standing above me. This time, though, he had a gun in his hand. It was the huntsman rifle that was on top of the fireplace. "Any last words, pray?" the stranger asked. I tried to find my voice. From my muffled screams, it was sore. I never got anything out. The man huffed in frustration. "No fun." I saw him point the gun at me. The last thing I heard was the sound of a gunfire. I shot up and let out a loud scream. My breath was fast. I had a light sweat on me. I felt tears running down my face. I looked down at myself, patting parts of my body. I had no scratches, no marks, no blood. I was fine. I heard pounding on my door. "Hard!" It was Angel Dust. "You okay in there, kid?" I heard him ask. I tried to catch my breath. I think so," I managed to say. I got up from the bed and tried to wipe my tears away and open the door. "I heard you screaming from the lobby," Angel said, a slight look of concern on his face. "I was that loud?" "Sorry, I had a nightmare," I told him. Angel put one of his hands on my shoulder. "Don't worry, I get 'em all the time as well." That comforted me a little. "Thanks for checking up on me. I appreciate it." No sweat. Just because I'm a dick doesn't mean I have to be all the time," he chuckled. I gave out a chuckle of that. "You're awesome, Angel." "You give me too much credit, kid." He rubbed the top of my head, messing up my hair. "So hey, while I'm here, I wanted to ask you." He took a pause and then leaned in slightly. "How long have you two been a thing?" he whispered. I knew exactly what he was talking about. Alastor and I let my secrets slip, and now the hotel knows. Everybody knows. I blushed. "Well, I don't see why that's your business, but I'll tell you anyway." I gave a small giggle. "It's been 4 months." 4 months?" Angel said in surprise. "You guys were good, but I clearly could see how you looked at each other. Kinda disgusting, really." Angel crossed his arms. "Well, we didn't want to tell because of Alastor's history, but I guess that doesn't matter now," I told him. "Yeah, I can understand. But hey, you guys ever get to the next step, I'm here to help out. I'm the master of seducing men." He gave me a wink. I blushed wildly. "Thanks, Angel." I cleared my throat from being awkward. "I'll keep that in mind." Angel laughed. He must have really enjoyed my reaction. "Well, I'll leave you be. Al isn't back yet. Want me to send him up here when he does?" he asked me. "Please, I'd like that," I said. Angel nodded. "Sure thing, babe. See you later." Angel turned and walked back down the hallway. I watched him walk away, and I closed my door. I headed back over to my bed. My thoughts just went back to my dream. Why did I have such a horrible dream? Especially of that man. I tried to remember if I had seen his face before, but again, my memory wasn't the best. Even after my first 25 years of being alive, I had a hard time putting a name to a face. Nothing came to mind, so I gave up. My main concern was, why did he seem like Alastor? Even when the lightning flashed and for that split second I saw his shadow on the wall, it confused me and concerned me. I tried to think of something else. It was just making me scared again. Then another thought went by. Something my sister had said about me finally being free, but the cost of doing so was leaving Alastor behind. Alastor would never redeem himself. He had it too good down here. If that was the case, then I'll have to just stay here in hell. I'd have to give up what I wanted for the last 75 years, but at the same time, I never met anyone that gave me a reason to stay. I loved it here now, all because of him. He made it better. Sure, this place was a shithole and always will be, but I can't picture my life without Alastor there. Without him, I probably would still want to be gone from this place. I'd miss Charlie and Baggy, plus all the other friends I've made. I realized I needed to talk to Charlie about this. I pulled out my phone and sent her a text. I was glad they showed me how to do it, but I was still slow. "Can you meet me in my room? I must talk to you. It's important." I sent the text. A minute later, my phone dinged, and she replied back, "I'll be up there soon." I waited on my bed. I pulled up my photo gallery on my phone. Alastor didn't know, or maybe he did and just let me get away with it, but I took photos of him when he wasn't looking. That's all there was. It was all him. I scrolled to the first picture, though. Our first date. I smiled at us as the memory came back of that day. Dancing in the room. No one around. He was all to me. I swiped on and looked through the rest of the pictures. Each one, of course, was Alastor smiling happily. Besides my friends, Alastor was all I needed. He is my everything. My great buck. I was taken out of my thoughts when I heard a knock on my door. I got up and went to the door and opened it to see Charlie. "Thanks for coming up here on such short notice," I said to her as I invited her in. "Oh, it's not a problem." She walked in and closed the door behind her. "I just got done with some things, so it was well timed." She turned around and looked at me. "I'm glad to see you're feeling okay," she said with a smile. "I do feel better, but I had a nightmare, so it woke me up. I just don't feel like going back to sleep." "Is that why you needed to talk to me?" Charlie asked. I shook my head. "No, unfortunately. The nightmare I had, I need to talk to Alastor about. I feel like he would know," I told her, rubbing my arm. "So, what do you need to talk about?" she wondered. I sighed and went to my bed and sat down. "I have something I need to discuss with you. It's about me being here." Charlie grabbed the one chair that was in my room. It was by the window and sat it in front of me. "I'm here for you. Tell me what you need." I don't know where to start. I didn't know what to say at first. I was just hoping I wouldn't upset her. I took a breath. "I want to stop my rehabilitation," I finally said. All Charlie did was smile. I wasn't expecting that at all. I thought she would have been frowning for me for sure. "I knew you would tell me this. After this morning, I heard what your sister said. I know that probably had you thinking a lot," Charlie told me. "So, you're not mad at me?" I asked. Charlie let out a giggle. "No, silly. I knew about you and Alastor before you said anything. I slowed your rehabilitation because of this. I know you don't want to leave now because you belong here, with Alastor. I still want to help out. I want to help you run things here, in any way I can," I told her, then looked at my hands. "Besides, wherever Al goes, I'll go with him. I know he won't leave. I know he doesn't want to be redeemed. So I'll stay here, because I know that he'll always be here for me. In this crazy, fucked up world." I laughed at the last part. Charlie gave a laugh too. "I understand. Even though you don't want to be redeemed now, I'll still let you stay here for as long as you want. I don't want you going back to live with your sister. Plus, if you want to help me, I know you'll always be around." I let out a tear. "Charlie, oh my goodness, I don't know if I can thank you enough for this." I gave her a hug. She was surprised by it. She wrapped her arms around me. "You're welcome, heart. No need to thank me. I'm happy to have you around." I pulled away from the hug. "I'm happy to be here. It is the Happy Hotel, isn't it?" I gave a chuckle. That made Charlie smile and gave a chuckle too. "Very true." She stood up from the chair. "I would want to stick around, but I have some stuff I need to finish. I hope you understand." I nodded. "No worries. Go on. I'll see you later." "Later. Feel better." She waved by and left my room. I took the chair Charlie was on and sat it by the window again. I then took a seat and looked out at the city. This city feels more like home than it ever has. I'm not sure how long I sat there, but was lost in my thoughts and didn't even hear the first knock on my door until I heard a second. I looked at the door. "It's unlocked," I finally said, getting out of my daze. The door opened, and that's when I saw Alastor walk in. "Hello, doll. As soon as I walked in the door, Angel said you needed to see me about something urgent," he asked, as he closed the door behind him. I watched him ever so sneaky lock it as well. He slowly made his way over to me. For a moment, my mind flashed back to my dream. Afraid, I felt my stomach churn. I sat there a moment, staring at him. He soon noticed my silence. "My dear, Are you all right? When he got up to me, he placed a hand on my shoulder. I flinched. I've never flinched at his touch before. He seemed to be taken aback from my action as well. He took his hand away from my shoulder slowly. Darling, did I do something wrong? He wondered. I could hear the slight upset tone in his voice. I gave a big sigh. I'm sorry, Al. I had a nightmare when I was asleep, and I've been jittery all afternoon since I woke up, I explained to him. Alastor's face softened a little. You want to tell me about it? Yes, I was afraid to really tell anyone else. Plus, I feel you would know a lot better about what I saw, I told him. Want to be more comfortable? He asked, gesturing to the bed. I nodded and stood up from the chair and crawled into bed. Alastor sat on the edge of the bed, facing me. Tell me your tale, Alastor said. I went on talking to him, explaining my dream. I woke up in my room, but not in the hotel. That I somehow was human again. How I found a study outside my door. The stranger. What did this stranger look like? Alastor asked. He seemed almost nervous. I went on to explain the man in my dream. Well, he was tall and slim. He had sharp brown hair. He was wearing a white long-sleeve shirt with his sleeves rolled up and a tan vest. And he had a red bow tie. He also had glasses, I described. Alastor seemed to tense up from me talking and explaining the man. And what did this man do to you? He asked, standing up from the bed. I was worried of his actions. I went on explaining how he tied me up and started to torture me. I left the part out of seeing his shadow on the wall. While I talked, Alastor seemed on edge about something. He walked to the window and looked out into the darkness of the city. I was worried. His smile was gone, at least not as big. He wasn't showing his teeth, but a small smile still laid on his face. I continued. That's when I thought he was done. He ended up taking the rag out of my mouth, cleaned the blood off my eyes, and then he shot me. He used a gun displayed above the fireplace. It was a huntsman's rifle, Alastor finished. My blood seemed to run cold. How did he know that? I never mentioned the type of gun it was. I saw Alastor's gaze was still out into the city. He sighed lightly and looked to the floor. I went to the edge of the bed. Al, is there something you're not telling me? He lifted his head slightly and looked at me from the corner of his eye and then back outside. That man in your dream, he's no stranger. You know him. Pretty close to him, actually, Alastor said, his voice low and almost sad-sounding. It took me a moment to think, but then it clicked. My heart dropped a moment. It was you, wasn't it? Human you. You were the man in my nightmare, I said, my voice shaking. He closed his eyes. It appears so. From all that you explained, that used to be me, Alastor said, laying one of his clawed hands on the glass of the window. I stood up from the bed and walked over slowly towards him. I stood next to him and laid a hand on his arm lightly. He pulled away from my touch. He probably wasn't in the mood for me touching him. I'm sorry, I whispered. He turned his back to me. He took a breath in. I want you to understand one thing from that nightmare of yours. What's that? I asked. Alastor looked over his shoulder at me, but then slowly turned the rest of his body around too. He lifted his hand and placed it on my cheek. I would never, ever do something like that to you. I killed for entertainment, yes. Do I still do? Of course. It's how I am. Would I ever do it to you? No, not ever. My human self, well, that would have been possible, because I wouldn't have known you. I killed almost for sport, killed for fun. It makes me happy. Watching someone beg for mercy, it gave me goosebumps. Now, all I feel is protecting you from whatever wants to harm you. I looked away from him. Should I believe him? If he snapped and got angry at me one day, would he hurt me? Would he take it out on me? Would he find it entertaining to watch me be bloody and broken, begging to live? He was crazy, no doubt about it. At the same time, though, I loved him. It would be bad of me if I didn't really believe him because of some dream, right? I looked at him back in the eyes. I believe you, Al. But how can I be sure? Alastor slanted his eyes in a seductive manner, then took his other hand and put it on my hip and pulled me close to him. "I'll show you," he whispered. He leaned down and placed a kiss on my lips. He kept me there a few moments, and he took the action I wasn't expecting. He maneuvered to slip his tongue into my mouth, and I gladly let him in. My ears went up with excitement. He was making out with me. This was a first. It was an amazing feeling, having his tongue touch mine. He explored my mouth for a short minute, and then pulled away, his face still close to mine. My face had a blush on it from a heated moment. "Because I love you, my little wolf," Alastor whispered to me. I sighed in happy content. There was nothing that could change my mind about all that. He loved me. That's all that mattered. "I love you too, my great buck. I'm sorry I questioned you." I apologize. Alastor gave me a small chuckle. "I'm glad I was able to change your mind." Alastor let go of me slightly and held my hands. "Now how about we go start dinner?" he said. "That sounds like a wonderful idea. Let's go." I smiled. Alastor took my hand and led me out into the hall and down to the kitchen. I was still in my comfy clothes, but I honestly didn't care who saw me like this. For once in our relationship, we walked down the stairs into the lobby, holding hands. It was an amazing feeling, actually. We could show our slight affection now, all thanks to me and my big mouth. That didn't matter to me, though. All I cared about was him. This man showed me that he loved me, and I wouldn't question him again. No matter what nightmares I have, no matter what people tell me, they won't change my mind on my thoughts on this crazy demon. He might have been a madman, but he was my madman. End of chapter 8. Well, that was interesting. I always liked the idea of human Alastor, so that's why I wanted to kind of throw him in and have a little nightmare. That's kind of like where the idea of this chapter came from. So I hope you all liked it. Remember to follow your hearts, my friends.